Friends, today we have a showdown between two smoky luxe quad eyeshadow palettes, taking a look at Yves Saint Laurent's Couture Mini Clutch Luxury Eyeshadow Palette in Over Noir and the Burberry Eye Quad in Midnight. I consider these to be both smoky quads, and I had went over them in different videos. Over Noir I swatched in my, I believe, Sephora haul for online order video, but I do have a separate video taking a look at the Burberry quad. So if you wanted more extensive swatches from the Burberry one, you can head over to that video. Oops, brushes are falling, and also take a look at the two looks I did. But I thought it would be interesting to feature these two and take a deeper dive, not only highlighting the similarities but the differences. Maybe you have one or the other, you have either, you don't care, you're just here to hang out. I appreciate that as well. And you're thinking about purchasing maybe the Yves Saint Laurent or the Burberry, but you need to kind of outline, okay, what are the texture differences, the color edit difference, and what is my preference as a makeup wearer, and which palette will provide those benefits. So if that is something interesting to you, make sure you stay tuned and consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like these, and maybe like the video by the end. Even if you click out in the middle and you still liked it because it has something to do, I will appreciate you clicking that thumbs up. Quickly going over the differences, you can see the distinctions between the packaging. One would argue that the Yves Saint Laurent packaging looks far more luxurious, considering that it is taking on the iconic pocketbook look, which, my apologies, I am such a fashion dummy, as Charlotte Hallcroft will call herself. That was such a great video, her giving her critiques on the Met Gala for 2025. But I'm sure there is a name for this design on the compact, but it pretty much is taking on the look of the luxury bag, whereas Burberry, funny, had changed their compact design before, and a few years ago, don't know the exact number, the Burberry compact was metal heavy and it had the iconic plaid design on the compact lid, whereas now we have the iconic trench beige with the gold detailing and the Thomas Burberry logo here at the clasps, right? Both are mechanical clasps, although I would say the Yves Saint Laurent compact is easier to open, where the Burberry a little tougher. You got to get under this latch to make sure you could open it. So I would say that's a slight disadvantage in terms of the mechanics for opening the compact. Both are made in Italy, and both have a suggested shelf life of 24 months, which is fantastic for a luxury product, and I'm happy to see, because the preservative clean beauty movement has totally impacted shelf life for many of these beauty products, shortening them significantly. And people like myself who we don't collect, I mean, you shouldn't collect something that degrades over time. We like to have many of, and would like to hang on to these for as long as possible until they do start to turn. So nice to see that there is ample time with these palettes. We got 2 years, family. And now let's take a look at the close-up textures, right? Again, we have 700 over Noir. You can see that there are different textures here. Now, I do have an Yves Saint Laurent formula breakdown video if you would like to check out, where I cover all of my Yves Saint Laurent quads and go over the different textures in each clutch palette. For Over Noir specifically, we have what's considered a satin base, the metallic pop, the matte enhance, and the satin define. Allow me to quickly swatch, and starting off, which I think one of the standout differences between the two quads is the inclusion of what's called a metallic pop in the mini clutch palette, but far more sparkly than what you would find in the Burberry quad. Burberry quad mostly contains satin and matte finishes. Not that that's not a bad thing, but something to consider if you like the sparkly Yves Saint Laurent is definitely going to give you that. Next, we have the satin base, which is a satin finish, more like a cool beige tone here. The matte enhance, designated matte black shadow, and the satin define, we have a satin base, gray charcoal. So this is the offering for the Yves Saint Laurent 700 over Noir mini clutch palette. And again, this is going to be my first time actually playing with this palette on my eyes. I have not an opportunity to do so, and I'm happy to report that my allergies have declined in severity, and now my eyes can withstand some little eyeshadow. Yay. Off to the Burberry palette, and I'll be happy to swatch now all 4 shadows. And you can see, just based off, without me even diving in, that you have primarily satin finishes and matte finishes. And instead of having a charcoal shade, we have like a more silvery ivory, a taupey beige, and a black brown matte, which could be make or break for you depending on, right? Because over Noir, I think overall more smoky cool, where maybe the inclusion of the black brown would steer Midnight 04 to be more neutral. And I'm on the Burberry site and tried to look for if they had any formula kind of breakdowns like Yves Saint Laurent does on their product page, but they don't. Burberry does not have what the matte formula is, or if they even have those formula differences, right? All it says here is that each eyeshadow provides a long-lasting, intense color and contains 95% ingredients of natural origin. It doesn't make a distinction between the colors, between the finishes, so we're just gonna make that up as we go. First, we have this silvery ivory shade, which swatches quite cool, and you can see this has a little bit of shine. I would consider this to be more of like a pearl finish, but look at the more reflective effect that comes from the metallic pop formula in the Yves Saint Laurent palette. Next, we have what I consider to be more of like a kind of beige taupe color, lighter and shinier than Yves Saint Laurent's satin base formula here and shade. Next, we have the black brown, and from this swatch, I do see, a little bit of sheen there, and that's going to be a black brown color, different from the charcoal satin in Yves Saint Laurent. I'm just going to say YSL for short, if you don't mind. And lastly, what I think is the black matte. And compared to YSL, there seems to be more black pigment than what's found in Burberry, but you can see that the texture is a lot softer. There's almost like a creaminess to the finish found in Burberry. And yes, I could have included Prada Beauty's Profusion in this battle royale, but I wanted to keep it a little edited, forgive me. I would say that the black matte in Profusion is a mix between the two. It has the depth from the YSL, but the creaminess even more so, because that the hyper matte is like a hybrid formula, like almost a cream to powder, dare I say. Creaminess from the Burberry. So it's giving you super black and super creamy in your face. If you want to see a demo of me applying that palette, I'll make sure to link my short here that I have. Ooh, that might need its own video. In fact, I think I would like, let me know down below in the comments, just like how I did a formula breakdown for YSL, I would love to do that for Prada Beauty. I just think those videos are so fun and would be interested to know, just breaking down the different finishes from those palettes, dirty fingers. Also because of their recent, I believe it's the Nude Halo quads that they released. I guess that would be February, maybe March, I can't remember. Those formulas are a little different because they included a duochrome, so I just want to make that breakdown as well. But now that we have details and swatches out the way, it's time for you to comment a little closer. For this battle royale demo, I'll prep my lids with Suku's eye primer, and this is by default because I have been using and did finish Pat McGrath Labs eye primer, but because I had the Suku, a brand new one, on deck as you saw, I decided to just move on to this and finish it. I do like both. The Suku feels like a creamy, wet consistency that doesn't dry down into like that silicone-y feel. I wouldn't compare it to Max Paint Pot. I think Max Paint Pot is a little drier. This feels a little more moisturizing to the lids. As you can see though, it does not offer any coverage. So if you are dealing with discoloration, I would recommend that you use an entirely different primer. I'll start with with the YSL since I haven't dived in yet, and I'm excited to see what it does. I could already predict that Over Noir is going to have more of like a Natasha Denona Xenon feel with like the silver and the charcoal colors, and Burberry's Midnight is going to be more of like a glam smoky moment. We'll see. Also, I don't know if Burberry is going to expand their eyeshadow palette lineup that will include more sparkly finishes, and I was thinking about this. I guess just being aligned with the fashion house, Burberry to me is not as flashy as YSL. Don't know if they will ever formulate something that's more shiny than their pearl formula, you know what I mean? Because Burberry to me is a lot more low-key than YSL, than a lot of the fashion brands out there, in my opinion. I don't know if that's accurate, but just from what I've seen is what I've figured out for myself. Kind of want to go in with the charcoal all over my lid because I think that's going to be one of the more straightforward approaches in using Over Noir, especially if you just wanted a one and done moment. I can also briefly show you what the beige satin base could look like if we were to just run this through the crease. You see there's a little bit of shadowing there. If you are my complexion around the medium tan part of the lineup, then this shade is going to have a little bit of coloring, soft, right? It's not going to be as distinct as something that's like a more neutral brown or darker brown, but I do like the soft contouring effect it has on the eyes, because if I wanted to, just to briefly show, this isn't going to be the final look, I could take the black matte and carefully stamp it here on the lash line. I don't necessarily have to wing it out, and keep in mind this shadow is very soft, so it travels easily, which is why I want to stamp to exercise a little bit of control over the placement. And that, I think, is a simple look you could achieve with Over Noir. If you wanted, you could place the shiny shade, the metallic pop, on the inner corner as kind of like to have that stardust effect. Now there is a little bit of that gray, just a touch on the base of the shade, which I don't think presents a problem if you're my skin tone, but you might run into an issue if you're lighter than me. It might appear shadowy on the inner corner and not so much highlight. So you might have to dip out, maybe use the highlight you applied on the cheekbones for that specific look to the inner corner if you wanted that effect. But back to my original idea, I'm just trying to present like different steps you can take with Over Noir, because yes, this is a battle royale video, but I also wanted to serve as like a brief tutorial, help me out video if you have Over Noir, you didn't quite know how to navigate it for eyeshadow application. To take now this charcoal, and my original idea was to place it all over the lid in this way, because something one and done about this satin finish and the color was appealing to me, because it immediately smokes me out, right? It gives me that a little bit of that intensity. Also, if I didn't want to necessarily apply the black on my outer lid, which I'm more than happy to do to demonstrate how much smokiness we can grab from that shadow, you can just use the charcoal, the satin base, or the satin define, whatever it's called, and done. Look at that. And again, just the tone, the gray, and a little bit of that same shadow, lower lash line. Keep in mind, if you take this step, it will naturally appear more smoky and hazy. So if you want to keep that to the lid, you just apply the charcoal satin on the lid and then leave your lower lash line alone, or you apply your black liner. But my goodness, that is a smoky-oky. We can now take metallic pop and carefully tap it on the satin, right? So it gets a little more twinkle, you add dimension there, a great opportunity to add a little more of that reflective effect on the satin finish. And if you even wanted more smoke, yes, we can do that, is now taking the black shadow, tapping it not along the lower lash line, but on the outer corner and creating a heartier, smoky bracket here. And because the YSL shadows are so soft, there's no need to over manipulate the placement. Once you've established where you want the shadow to stay, I just use light flicking motions to diffuse the edges, and that's all you need because it travels very fast. I'm not sure you could detect like the soft texture of the shadows, but because the shadow is so soft and I'm getting some fallout here on my palm, just be wary of that. Don't apply, make sure you don't pick up so much shadow that you don't have any control over the placement, right? Because it could get a little whew if you already see what's happening. And just gently now softening the edge of that black shadow on my outer corner, my outer lower corner, and just maybe taking it a little winged out, just like that. That's where we're stopping. So that is eye number 1 with the YSL. You saw how I started at different stages where we just wanted a little definition along the lash line, and then we brought a little smokiness with the satin charcoal color, and then we smoked it out by inviting the black, also tapping the metallic pop on the center of the lid to again add that reflectivity. Now we go into the Burberry, which let's see. In the same way I started with Over Noir, we don't have the same beigey satin contour shade in the Burberry quad like we do in YSL. What I have is more of like this taupe color. Instead of brushing that through my crease, I'll take this color all over my lid because this has more of like a sheen effect on the eyes, which I find better suited for my lids and not so much the crease. And you could already see that lightens my lid a little bit. It has a bit of that highlight effect. And for the ivory shade, this one here very much can be applied on the inner corner. And this is going to have more of a distinct highlight effect than the metallic pop shade from YSL. It's not going to have the same shine and sparkle effect for sure. You could see the difference just based off how this looks more satin finish versus the metallic pop looks more, as the name implies, metallic-y, but I also say twinkly. This has more of a brightening effect on my eyes and my skin tone, and we can follow the same example we started with on eye number 1. I could take the black matte or what I think is a dark brown satin. I could be wrong about that. But now carefully stamping that along the lash line, if I wanted to keep this look, on the softer part of the spectrum. I can wing the shadow out, but I think maybe like a kitten wing, just a little bit of a meow. Taking that on the inner part of the lash line, just stamping across, seeing what we got. And that's, I think, just a soft glam look you could achieve with Burberry's 04 at Midnight. You have a little bit of sheen on the lid and that definition across the lash line. Now we can take this same color on the lash line and then bring it to the outer corner. Why don't we do that first? Making sure I rub my brush so I can release the black pigments from the YSL quad and not cross-contaminate, where I am taking the Burberry dark brown shade on the outer V and just carefully brushing that through the crease. I find that the Burberry shadows are creamier in that they don't move as much on the lid, and they actually have a little more adherence in my opinion. I can only speak for the Midnight quad because I'm not entirely sure how consistent the formula is across all 4 Burberry quads. But dare I say, the Burberry formula might be a little easier to deal with because it's almost like the powder doesn't run away from you because it latches onto the skin, whereas the YSL formula has a little more zhuzh to it. So if you don't have control over your brush, that powder can travel to maybe portions of your eye that you don't want it to go. So that's the dark brown, and already it's smoky, but not as smoky as before we even added the black shadow, right? The charcoal color in itself completely dominated my eye and just appeared more sultry overall, even without the black matte. Whereas this, even though I smoked it on my outer corner, it doesn't appear as smoky heavy. So because of that, you might have a little more wiggle room in midnight, and the dial is not as extreme. When you turn it, you just have more control over what smokiness you wish to establish for your eye look. If we wanted to bump it up, I very much can take the dark brown and lay it over that taupey satin shade, because there you go. That's going to give you a lot more smoke. And I can refine the edges through my crease if I wanted to achieve a far more smokier eye without the black, right? So this is with the Burberry, and it still appears pretty soft in nature, in my opinion, just because of the color. And why not? Just to be consistent here, I'm placing the dark brown on the lower lash line, just so that we can establish the same smoky oaky. I'm taking my Refer Showdown brush and just refining the edges here. Yes, a lot better. Okay, we're getting there. And if we wanted to, yes, let's tap on the black now on the outer corner, and that's going to show up distinctly more smoky. And I'm happy to say that the color integrity of the dark brown is maintained. Even though I'm placing the black on the outer corner, it doesn't look muddy. You can see that there is a distinct gradient from the black shadow going into the dark brown. I'm still being careful with how I'm blending this out because I don't want it to appear too hazy. I might pull it out like I did with the YSL, right? Just to create a little more of like that smoky haze effect. And I'm taking a little bit of this taupe satin on the inner part of this arc just to soften the edges. And also, I would like to I could do the silver. Oh, I just noticed I got a little fallout from over Noir. We'll take care of that in a minute. I want to take a little bit of the silver here on my brow bone, just so we can add a little bit of highlight, but not too much, because I don't want it to appear super ashy. And if you wanted, you could try taking the silver and tapping it on the lid. It's going to have more of like a glow effect versus a sparkle effect, like you see from the YSL. And sparkle versus glow versus pearl, it really all depends on your preference, right? Sometimes more isn't better in terms of reflectivity, although some go by that, where they rather have the more twinkle effect with eyeshadow versus more of like a subdued effect with satin and pearl finishes. That's really up to you. I just want to take care of the fallout that I experienced from the YSL. Oh no, it kind of stuck. It's stuck. Now this is probably because the YSL shadow is so soft that you have to make sure that you tap off the excess shadow, unlike what I did in this demo, before you go in on your eyes, just to make sure you don't get the fallout like I did, or eyeshadow first and then foundation and blush afterwards, right? Just so you can minimize that risk. All right, demo is done. It's time to apply some lashes, and I'll be right back. Here are the final looks from using YSL's Couture Mini Clutch and Burberry's Quad in Midnight and YSL in Over Noir. I have to say, I prefer the Burberry Quad. I guess it's because I prefer the formula from Burberry, where it's creamier and there's more grip to the skin, where the YSL shadows are incredibly soft. Now, this doesn't mean that the YSL shadow formula isn't good. I gushed over it in my formula breakdown video, and I had emphasized how the shadow textures in the YSL Quad almost emulate that of fabric, like powdered fabric, and it makes it beautifully easy for the user to apply these shadows. But I do feel in the quad lineup that there are better performing quads over others, and in my opinion, Over Brune 710 is by far one of my most favorites, and I think it's because it contains especially I think like that plum one that's more satiny. Let me go get it for you. This formula here resembles what exists in the Burberry, in my opinion, where you can see how soft the charcoal shadow is from Over Noir, and it doesn't have the same grip. And I feel like if you brush over it, and if you don't maybe prep your lid with more of like a glitter glue primer, it could kind of blend away, especially if you want to layer shadows on top. So when I layered the metallic pop shadow over the satin beige charcoal, the satin beige charcoal started to blend away a little bit and kind of left like just a little opening on my lid, which isn't bad because the metallic pop is there. But when I did that with the Burberry, like that brown shadow stuck. It did not move. I just tapped on the lighter ivory shade and there was no blend away, right? It just stayed where it was. So I wanted to present that distinction because maybe at face value you prefer the YSL because it's more gray black on the scale, and Burberry doesn't have the metallic pop sparkly arcly. It just has the satin finishes with a nice pearl sheen to the blend, and it has the dark brown and the black, the ivory, and like that taupe beige. Maybe those colors don't appeal to you, but I do feel that the formula found in Midnight, again, I can't speak for all quads, just like how I think there are some slight performance inconsistencies in the YSL quad collection, that at least Midnight for me is fantastic and fairly easy for me to achieve this look. And I'm partial to dark browns. I think it makes it such a remarkably important transition shade for smoky looks because you can get smoke, but it'll appear a lot softer in nature and not look so full-on glam, where you could use it to tap along your lash line. Maybe you use it to invite a little bit of a smoky bracket on the outer corner, not blown out. And if you wanted to increase that intensity, then you'll apply the black shadow instead. Whereas on the YSL, you're going from like that taupey beige that we applied to the crease and the charcoal. So it's either the charcoal along the lash line, or the black shadow along the lash line, the black matte, or the charcoal on the outer corner, which could be fine. It could look soft still. That's not a bad idea. Maybe if I tried that demo, I will have a different opinion in terms of the quad's versatility, but my opinion still stands on the formula and the performance. I do think Burberry's shadows, at least in 04 Midnight, are easier, they're creamier, and they have better grip to the skin on the lid, where the YSL shadows are softer. They do have like that blurring effect, but the trade-off is you have to make sure you apply a primer with a little more stick and grab for those softer shadows. So let me know, family, what you think down below. If you have both, if you have one or the other, if you have neither, what you think your next move is going to be, and if you would like to see a product breakdown formula video, I'll be more than happy to film that. And if you made it this far, make sure you like this video by clicking that thumbs up. It helps me tremendously in letting know the algorithm that I'm worth watching, and consider subscribing because I have more ideas on deck, and when I upload those videos, you'll be the first to know, especially if you click that notification bell. If you want to check out my video reviewing the new Haus Labs Glossy Balm shades in Glassy Cayenne and Cinnamon, and also the new Hula Wave Cream Bronzer that released in April, but I had no idea it was existing, then you can click that video here. I'll make sure to see you in that video, down in the comments for this video, and on here again next time.